Οπλίγεται στο τοπάν και πρωτοστήνε την γη και των ουρανών γινώσκον τα πάντα. Ως όρος πατρί και όρθερον εν ύμνη.
Δόξα Συ ο Θεός ημών, δόξα Συ. Λόγος συνέστησαν των ουρανών αματική, συνείδηγαν το Πατρί και διαλόγου φέρω το δε το παν, ο λόγος σοφία και δύναμις και οίκων και συνεργός και ισουργός.
Δόξα Συ ο Θεός ημών, δόξα Συ.
Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, and this is the final of my videos that I'm going to be talking about Cyprus. Now, as you can see, I'm no longer in Cyprus, I'm back home, and this is the video where I reflect on the trip that I took there with Alex Jacobi. Overall, I don't think it was the best holiday I've ever been on. And I don't think either Alex or myself fell in love with Cyprus as a country. That said, I think as you get older, it's much harder to fall in love with a country. You know, when you're young and everything's fresh and new and you've not travelled a lot, then like any country seems magical. And now, you know, I've been to almost 80 countries in the world, and there does tend to be that kind of sense of, oh, I've seen it before. Which is a shame, because it means, I suppose, I'm slightly jaded, but in a more positive sense, it's good because it means I can put everything that I've seen into context better. And I guess my overall impression of Cyprus is that it's unique. And that uniqueness I only know because I can put it into context. Cyprus is predominantly culturally Greek. Obviously, there's a large Turkish element as well. But it's unlike Greece or Turkey. It certainly doesn't feel like Turkey at all, or at least not the parts of Turkey that I've been to, although I haven't been to the coastal areas. But it doesn't feel particularly like Greece either. And that's because its history is unique. And I only realise this, you know, having travelled to lots of other places in the region. Alex and I talked about this, and we felt, particularly in the earlier days when we were travelling around the Greek part of Cyprus, that if anywhere, it reminded us more of Lebanon than anywhere else. And of course, Lebanon's not that far away. And so that's perhaps right. There is this Near Eastern feel to Cyprus that's quite distinct from Greece, and I would say quite distinct from Turkey as well. The architecture isn't traditional Greek architecture, and it just does have its own vibe, and I guess that makes it worth visiting. The cultural kind of history, the legacy that it's got, is totally, utterly unique. And the best places I can explain that with are Nicosia and Famagusta, which are probably two of the best towns to visit. Nicosia and Famagusta are remarkable for some of the architecture that they've got in them. And yet that architecture, all the best stuff, is actually more or less Frankish. It's West European. They've both got incredible Gothic cathedrals. They're both mosques today, but you know, these cathedrals dominate the landscape, and whether they've been turned into a mosque or not, they look like cathedrals. They look like something out of medieval France. And of course, it was the medieval French that built them, so that's that. But also, both of them have got a set of Venetian walls that, you know, are not like anything that you find in the Near East. So there's this sense that there's something radically different culturally going on in Cyprus. And, you know, particularly in Famagusta, where it was ruined church after ruined church. You know, even though there was a church like called St. George of the Greeks and that, and there was an Armenian church in Nicosia, they were all obviously Catholic churches that had been converted or fallen into ruin or whatever. And so that I think is what makes Cyprus, you know, so special, is you have this Islamic influence, you have this huge Greek influence, but there's also I guess you'd call it a crusading influence as well. And yet, of course, what's strange is that the ones who left the greatest cultural impact on the island are completely absent from the scene, except that some of their descendants are holidaymakers. There is no real Catholic presence on Ireland, and no Frankish presence today, and yet they've left such an incredible legacy. Also, of course, those fortresses and the mountains in the north. I mean, wow. So that's, I think, what makes Cyprus unique, and for that reason alone, it's worth watching. If you're one of those people who enjoys a kind of cultural mishmash. So, for example, years ago, I went and walked the Silk Road, and my friend that was walking, well, I didn't walk the Silk Road. I travelled the Silk Road, but my friend that was travelling it with, that we met on the Silk Road, Brian, he said that what he liked was the mix. It wasn't one thing in particular, but it was the fact that you'd see something Chinese in the west or something European in the east, kind of thing. And I think that's the thing with Cyprus, is that mix. Is it worth going just for the sights? Yes. There are world-class sites in Cyprus. I mean, really remarkable stuff that is worth seeking out. The highlights for me culturally, in no particular order, the Crusader castles in the mountains in the north. Unbelievable. Like some of the best castles I have ever been to in my life. And I've been to a few. Famagusta, the city of ruins. So you've both got this kind of ruined ancient city within the walls, but then you've also got that abandoned holiday resort on the edge for Rocha. I mean, unbelievable stuff. Well worth visiting. Nicosia, I'll be honest, the Greek side was slightly disappointing. It was noisier, it was more built up, but there was still stuff worth seeing. The Turkish side was incredible. And Nicosia, for me, is a city well worth making the effort to visit. And the painted churches in the Troodos Mountains. Wow. Yes, they were worth seeing. Paphos itself as a place was a bit meh. But you know what? The archaeological site and the tombs of the kings and some of the stuff on the edge of the archaeological site, so the church of St. Paul and Chains and some of the catacombs stuff. Wow, unbelievable. Didn't like Limassol. Absolutely, really naff city. And I guess that's the big problem. Like, Limassol symbolizes the problem with Cyprus, or at least the Greek half, completely, utterly overdeveloped. The whole coast is completely overdeveloped. It's bland, it's tasteless, it's too much. And it's such a shame, because once upon a time, only 50 years ago, it would have been this unspoilt, gorgeous coastline. Now it's just endless resort. I can't, complain too much, because when I was younger, package holidays were what got me into traveling. So, I can't knock people who take package holidays too much, because I've been one. But they do come at a cost. Larnaca was another resort. That was better, though. Larnaca had its old heart. The Church of St. Lazarus is brilliant. And, there was the little fortress there. I particularly loved the mosque by the Salt Lake. I thought the mosque by the Salt Lake was that rare gem of a very feminine Islam. What a beautiful place that was. Really, really struck me, that did. And but yeah, the problem with the Greek Cyprus as a whole is it's overpopulated, and of course that's not the fault of the Greeks. That's because they kicked them all out of the north. And so I hate myself for saying this, but actually I much prefer Turkish Cyprus. I don't agree with the Turks occupying it. I think it was illegal. I think it's wrong, and I think the Greeks should be allowed to return. But what it has meant is that development is far behind there, although they are developing now, which is an awful shame. And what that means is you've got particularly like the Panhandle, the peninsula, Karpas Peninsula, it's called, absolutely gorgeous and virtually empty. And so, that is well worth witnessing. But in the south, there's just too many people and too much development and too much commercialism. And that's what it is. So that was that. If I were to go with lowlights, again, that whole development thing, I don't know, there weren't any particular lowlights. I mean, it just, there was some of it, I don't know, it's just sometimes you don't fall in love with something, right? You know? It's like, you know, you can have a beautiful woman who's really nice, intelligent, and inspirational, but if that spark ain't there, it ain't there. And I guess that's how I feel with Cyprus, which is a strange thing to say, but it's just where I am at. A few other reflections. I travelled with Alex. It's my third trip with Alex. It's the second we've taken together, because the first one was the one where we met, where we were, you know, we were both just happened to be on the same trip. Alex is an amazing travel companion. There's no two ways about it. He's probably my best yet, because, and I think the main reason for that is he's the first travelling companion I've ever had where I've not taken the lead in, you know, sorting stuff out and actually knowing about the place. I'm pretty knowledgeable about most places, but that guy is on another level. And it's so nice to kind of marinate in his wisdom sometimes. The downside, I guess, and, you know, I'm not saying anything happens to him first, is he does have some pretty hardcore itineraries. And I am a little bit older and perhaps not as physically healthy. And at the end, I was shattered. I mean, Alex himself said he probably tried to do too much because, and we both felt the same, we reckon we won't be going back. You know, this is something to tick Cyprus off. So if we didn't do it this trip, we were never going to do it. Whereas if we were going to somewhere like Italy, well, there's always a chance you can fit it in on another trip. And that meant trying to cram in so much. And I was really tired, I have to say. And, you know, and that's why the last day or two I kind of switched off a bit. But, you know, I don't know, it's better that way than the other way. You're just sitting around doing nothing, right? So, and, you know, and it is really nice to have a quality travelling companion to go around with. So that was good. That was good. And you know what? I'd go on holiday with Alex again. I mean, whether he'd go on holiday with me again is another matter. I think he will. But you know, he's a good guy to travel with. And what was nice is what we also did on our other trip is he arrived a few days before me and left a few days earlier. So I did get a couple of days on my own because I do like my own space, and I got that. And on those couple of days on my own, I kind of chilled out a bit more. So yeah, that was my travelling companion. The accommodation, which was all booked by Alex, apart from the stuff in the north, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the one in Famagusta was my favourite. The guy that ran it was really nice. It was just a characterful place. But the one in Larnaca was also excellent. The one in Larnaca was a beautiful, beautiful place. The one I had in Gurney, I booked that. To be honest, it was bland, but it was cheap, and it did the job. The one I booked in Paphos was also good, and that had a bit more character. That was quite pleasant. The one in the Choros Mountains, it was a nice hotel, but a little chilly actually. The weather hadn't quite heated up then. Reminding both of us actually very much of our hotel in Bachari when we went to Lebanon. So yeah, that was that one. Oh yeah, Nicosia. That was kind of a bland business hotel, but it was it had a foyer like something out of North Korea. It was brilliant. So yeah, and you know what? People were really friendly. I have to say. I know it's the cheesiest thing you can say, like, oh, it's the smiles of the people that make it, and it's the friendly people that are why you go back. But the Cypriots on both sides we found to be friendly. And that was, you know, that's nice. You know, we didn't experience any antagonism. Talked to quite a few. Also, you know, I noticed there was a large immigrant population. There was a lot of Filipinos and Africans who seemed to be working there or studying there. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. Particularly in the north, there was a lot of Africans in the north that seemed to be students. But I remember I was talking to a Filipino girl at Nicosia bus station, and she worked in Ayia Napa. So I'm not quite sure how that works. And of course, there are a lot of East Europeans on the holiday resorts, which is a little, like, it's kind of nice, but it's also a little bit sad for me because I started off my travels by working on a holiday resort in Corfu, and back then there were no East Europeans doing the package holiday thing. Literally, the first tour groups of Hungarians and Czechs came the year I was there. But now they're working out there and living out there, and the British, of course, don't have the opportunities because of Brexit, and I think that's really sad. So, yeah, that there's kids kind of 18, 19 as I was, that perhaps don't have the opportunities that I once had. And I think that's really, really sad. So that's that. Any other reflections? Well, you might remember in one of my videos that I talked about in Nicosia, I had an experience. We met a lady in a cafe, and she started talking to us. She was Moldovan. And I felt that it was a bit of a missed opportunity, and it's quite interesting because that conversation, or lack of a quality conversation, coupled with me reading the Sufi book, really stuck with me and made me think, and it made me kind of reassess how I look at things and how I interact with strangers. And what's happened since the holiday, because there's been quite a bit of time passed, because I wanted to leave some time this time in between the holiday and the actual reflection, because some things, it's like tea, it takes a while to brew, right? And what I've done since coming back, directly related to that experience, is actually started making more of chance encounters with strangers. And it's really been a brilliant thing. Like, I've made some excellent friends, and really opened opportunities that I never thought would be there. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Sufi on about this. When I told him about this girl, he said straight away, he said, "Oh, you met Al-Hida." And Al-Hida is he's a Muslim prophet. It means the green one. He's often identified with St. George, and he comes to strangers to get them to change their life. And it's my Sufi friend's opinion that I met Al-Hida there, which I thought would be pretty cool if it's true. I actually think it might be, and of course, going to the Sufi Teke straight afterwards and then reading that Sufi book. Is it all coincidence, or was there a divine plan? Well, I'll leave you to decide that one, but I'd like to think there was. So I could say that whether I fell in love with Cyprus or not, it did change my life in quite a remarkable way. So, yeah, that's that. Let me have a think. Other stuff I've not talked about. Driving. Yeah, I did quite a lot of driving on this trip, and it was really the prices were reasonable, and it's quite a good place to drive around. I mean, obviously they drive on the same side of the road as us, but that's not it. It was just nice driving along the island roads. And what I also enjoyed was in the north, seeking out some of the lesser known sites and some of the really old ones. So you might remember when we went to Famagusta, we went for a day and we went to Salamis, which, that was great, but it was kind of what I expected. And the Church of St. Barnabas, which disappointed slightly, but we also went to Enkomi, which was the original capital of Cyprus. It's like, I don't know, Neolithic, I guess. It's, 3,000, 4,000-year-old city. And the ruins there, although they're slight, blew me away because it was like a window into a much earlier, a more mysterious world. And so I went to the other site, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was the altar. And that, I don't know, it was like, back to Baal worship, the kind of stuff you read about in the Old Testament. It was great. And I think those many layers of history is something that, of course, it's not just Cyprus, it's the whole of the Near East and indeed the Mediterranean world. But I really enjoyed that. Really, really enjoyed that in those very early sites. And starting with the trip that I took with Alex to Lebanon, and bolstered by my trip to Jordan, and then this one, I really want to find out more about that kind of ancient Near Eastern world, because I find it really, really intriguing. So that was good. Also, I have to mention, it's perhaps one of my favourite sites, if not the favourite, was the Persian Palace on the headland, which overlooks Soli. Again, the ruins, nothing brilliant, but the setting, you really felt that this is the place where you would meet the Greek gods. Oh, what a place. What a place that was. So, do you know what? Actually, looking back, I've got a lot of really good memories of Cyprus. And, I'm hoping it will inform my travels in the future. But that's that. Thank you, as always, for watching my videos. I hope they prove to be entertaining, informative, maybe just a bit useful for your own travels. So thanks for watching, and more importantly, keep traveling.
Είδετε ότι εγώ είμαι Θεός, ο πριν γενέσω το παν, και πρωτοστήνε την γη και τον ουρανό.